Hello and welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Fara Sax. Our city welcomes the 28th edition of the Miami Jewish Film Festival, the largest of its kind in the United States. Running now through January 23rd, this year's festival features over 130 films from 25 countries, with many world, North American, and international premieres. And you can enjoy the films from the comfort of your home or in theaters across 8 venues throughout Miami-Dade County. The stunning opening promo, which you see here, was created by Israeli artist and 2-time festival filmmaker More Israeli, supporting Israel's vibrant artistic community. And I'm honored to serve on the critics jury once again this year, and I will announce the film of the year during the closing night. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by local filmmakers Clare Vickery and Aaron Glickman, whose film Miami Schmatta premieres at the festival. It explores Miami's rich history in the garment and fashion industries. Welcome, Clare and Aaron, to the Community Voice.
Thank you so much for having us. Here we are.
And I feel like I've been schmatterized.
Yes, you have.
Beautiful film.
Thank you.
Beautiful history.
Yes.
Tell me about it, Clare.
Well, I would say beautiful people, too. But we think of fashion as a beauty industry, and truly what we found is a beautiful spirit with everyone we interviewed. And we didn't know what we would find when we started. The project started about two and a half years ago. And it started as a historical research grant because of Wynwood's amazing history. And we heard from Dr. Paul George that there was a garment industry there, small, compact industry. But even he hadn't really been able to research all of the archival information and some of the letters and some of the photos and some of the reels that are deeply embedded in the archives of the Wolfson. So what we started with was interviewing 11 key people, and then Aaron dug deep into the archives to really find some backup material, and that's how the project started.
And how did you all connect and come and partner this to this beautiful film that's like under an hour? And I felt like I went on a journey in Miami, and it was like places I knew and people I even know, and it's extraordinary, and it's a must-see. I know it's sold out. It's sold out. Tonight is your world premiere.
World premiere. Tonight's sold out, yes.
But we're going to go virtual.
There's a virtual screening tomorrow, yes.
So getting back, how did you guys connect?
Well, I've known Claire. Claire and I have known each other for a long time, almost 18 years, I'd say at this point. I met Claire when I was doing a print publication many years, 18 years ago, and Claire had a relationship with the artist Purvis Young, and we did a photo shoot with Purvis, and that's where I first met Claire. And we've stayed in touch over the years, and Claire had some other projects that we partnered on with filming, a project she does with local artists and sailing and sales, artist paint sales, and I always found that project to be inspirational. So we interviewed those artists and did some short subject pieces on that. And so we had that working relationship, and then when it was time to explore Wynwood, she gave me a call, and boom, here we are with you.
And it's interesting. What was your inspiration?
So
It's a personal start.
So yes, my mother, like many women of that era, I don't know if your mother as well, received Butterick patterns in the mail.
No, it was my grandmother. And I remember seeing that happen. So tell me about your mother.
So my mother sewed a lot of clothes. My prom dress, her sister sewed her wedding dress, her mother sewed clothing, and my mother at different times of her life didn't really need to sew, but women of her age loved to work with their hands. And so many people that are probably listening to this and recognize the Singer machine in their home, and has become sort of a relic of the past. And so that partly inspired me. Dr. Paul George's references of, the Wynwood district at that time, the Wynwood Art District that we all know and love and have seen sort of slowly going away. That was another inspiration. Purvis Young, whose gallery was at Wynwood for a while, and also in Overtown nearby. All of those things sort of inspired me to let's find out about what artistic history does Wynwood really hold. And that's when we found several people through an article that Sofia Agostini wrote called "Where Have All the Tailors Gone?" Because tailoring too was and kind of is becoming a relic of the past. But a lot of men from the 50s, the 60s, even the 70s and 80s, tailored suit clothing was a must-have because people didn't leave the house, and especially on Sundays and the weekends, women and men dressed up for church. And what we found is many industry factories, including some you'll see up there later. Rene Ruiz talks about a lot of the different factories and places that made clothing. They were working for a whole generation that dressed up. If you were going outside, you did not go out with sweatpants. It was unheard of. There was no such thing. So that whole thing kind of fascinated me. And we did find through working with MDC, which I also think you have some photos of that we found young kids that I think we hear about with records and sort of vinyl coming back into vogue. These kids, they're filling the classroom with all these a little more modern sewing machines, but they're still sewing machines. And we're learning from also some of their professors, who's Julian Acion, who you'll see who worked with Mrs. Obama, and a very famous...
we have a picture of that.
Yeah, a very famous Miami City Ballet designer who also worked in New York, Isabella Toledo, and her partner. Some of their final works with Julian was working for Mrs. Obama. I mean, we have people that came from our community that started with essentially nothing, came from Cuba, and then went on to come through Miami, go to New York, and now they're teaching at MDC. And he took some great photos for the film of the kids that are learning that trade.
Yeah.
Aaron did.
The name, love it. Miami Schmatta.
Yeah.
Talk about that reference.
Well, Schmatta means rags, and the Jewish people, and this is the Miami Jewish Film Festival, came down from New York or even from Cuba. There's a Cuban Jewish person who came to Miami via New York and went into the zipper business. So you had these Jewish entrepreneurs who, it goes back to Europe, really. It goes back to a time when Jewish people were not allowed to have the same jobs that non-Jews had.
So they had to find another way.
They had to find another way to make a living. And so they went into the rag business. They made clothing, Schmatta, and other things, the jewelry business, other things. So that essentially. So then these same Eastern European Jewish people came to the United States, New York, Florida, and they built factories and they started businesses here, and those factories employed many immigrants who came in from Cuba, from Puerto Rico, from elsewhere. And then those immigrants then went and started their own businesses. Mm-hmm. It's really the American dream for all of them, whether they were Jewish or Cuban or Puerto Rican or Lebanese mm-hmm. or whatever they were. They came to this country, many with nothing, and started businesses and lived a fine life through the garment industry, and that's where Miami Schmatta comes from. So it's a story of immigrants. We told a story of immigrants, touching stories, tailors, garment makers that found the American dream through the garment industry.
So we have a clip. It's a world premiere tonight, but I'm going to give you a sneak peek of it right now here in our studio. So if no further ado, let's roll it. Miami Schmatta.
Yeah.
By the 50s, things are changing rapidly. You've got a rising garment district along Fifth Avenue, and it's beginning to fill in a lot of buildings and also build some new buildings.
And Schmatta in Yiddish means rags.
My father came to Miami in '52 when I was born, worked as a pattern maker, got involved with a business, became the owner of CoverGirl of Miami in '54. That was Winwood.
And I came in 1961. Changed my nice clothes and I put a pull on and I started to learn sewing because I need to work. We having only 25 cents on the pocket.
But no money in my pocket. You said, John, I love you.
John the tailor.
You are a good man.
He's famous
you
locally.
You are a good tailor. I never forget those days.
I mean, John the tailor. Yeah. John the tailor moved here from Lebanon. He had everything taken away from him in we can, not to get too political, but yeah, he had everything taken away from him in Lebanon, a Christian Lebanese, and he came to this country with nothing.
And I don't want to give too much of the story, but someone helped him and helped him in a miraculous way that changed his whole life and his trajectory of having nothing. The love of humanity. That's what I loved about this documentary. If you don't mind me putting my 2 cents in, it was really a tribute to loving the work, the passion for what you do, and making a living at it, but with really a wholehearted feeling and commitment to what you're doing. And you show that brilliantly, both of you, and I love that point of view for both of you.
And making families out of people that weren't necessarily from your family. I mean, if you notice, Florence became and was very emotional. She was very attached to the Barrett family who founded CoverGirl. Andy's father, Morton Barrett, Senior, I think, he founded CoverGirl, and Tale evolved from that, from Andy, and then his rest of his some of his descendants have gone on and made different tennis, actually, casual wear sort of took over from where the formal wear stopped. But you see Florence sort of bridging those multiple generations and loving this family that she sort of inherited. This also was true for John the Tailor. I mean, this amazing Israeli man, who I believe he does mention his name in the film, gave him the shop essentially because he was going to go back to Israel. There was a lot of transition in the early 70s in the Middle East, and while Mr. Corey was having to evacuate Lebanon, this Israeli man in Miami was willing to transition his business because he was going back to Israel. These were so emotional, by the way, that some of them couldn't finish the interview. You'll see a little bit in the clip there. I mean, he obviously went on, but there are some very emotional moments.
And I feel that humanity.
Yes.
That was beautiful. And John, I mean, this is the first time he had a chance to talk about these things. I mean, he probably never even talked about a lot of these things with his own family. These very proud people hold on to these things and what he went through. And then in this moment, he got a chance to talk about it with us. And it all comes out. That's the beautiful thing about making documentary films.
I was going to ask you that. What is that like to be almost like you're like the bird, you're like the little elephant in the room, or the little butterfly running around, or the fly on the wall, and you're having this intimate relationship with these people. What's that like for you to be part of that?
Well, I love it. I mean,
that's what you do.
That's what I do. My training was as an actor. I went to theater school, and I did regional theater, and I lived in Los Angeles for a long time, and I studied Meisner under a guru teacher out there, and learning how to listen and respond and connect with people at that level.
They taught you very important things that you bring to your own filmmaking.
I mean, I think so, yeah. I mean, there's the ability to listen, the ability to follow up, the ability to go deeper in an interview and get people talking about things, and to relate and to feel comfortable enough to talk about those things when the lights are on and the camera's rolling. That can be very intimidating. So we did that together, and they opened up and shared intimate aspects of their lives with us, which is very rewarding. And I enjoy it. I enjoy getting to know people on that sort of visceral level and exploring what really makes them tick, be it this film or any other film that I'm working on, and that's and I think that Claire and I accomplished that. Not only with John the Tailor, but with Florence. I mean, Florence opened up.
Alexandra Pedrosa, the beautiful Cuban woman in Hialeah, who's everyone over there is over 65 years old.
I love that. I love that. I was like, I love that. That is like so amazing to give opportunity and voice to women in a creative mode. What was that like for you? What did you learn from this experience? Did you go into it thinking because we talked about this off camera, Aaron. We talked about you start at one point and then you end up at another point. Did you have that opportunity here to go, I'm going to end it here? Or did it take you through a new path?
So I had no idea. Actually, I thought we were going to, because that article, Where Have All the Tailors Gone, was all about men. And it happens to reference one young female business entrepreneur, and also a woman who didn't know how to sew really at all when she began, Ashley Lemer, which
we have a picture of her too.
See as well. quickly, really, in the industry, earned a great deal of respect from the Verretts, the Horensteins, and others, because she did the work. She did the hard work of going.
She was curious. She was curious. She wanted a thirst for learning.
Hard work, like going all, like, you know how hard it is to get from just here to A to B, just here this morning, even non-peak traffic. She spends most of her day driving around to Alexandra Pedrosa's factory, to this one, to that one, trying to get these uniforms together. So you have, Ashley's story, and then we have an interesting story too, a sort of not a female, but mostly male-related retail story, which is not necessarily a surprise, but to those who live, born and lived in Miami, the Austin Burke, this sort of place that a lot of people drive by on 95.
The retail end.
I had no idea until I saw your
riot. A riot.
I never knew his story.
His father must have, clearly was almost like a comedian and a beloved character that seemed to be very, but the son,
a Miami legend.
Yeah, and he was sort of the quiet behind the scenes guy, but you could see how he had absorbed some of his father's. But again, upstairs in the tailor's room was the 60-plus-year-old. We have a moment in the film where we show them, but again, over 60 seems to be the age group that is carrying forward, with the exception of Ashley. But again, she's still handing work to Alexandra and other women. But as a woman, I am passionate about telling stories. I think if you just tell a good story, and that can be true whether you're a filmmaker, you write a good article, you paint a great painting, you're a good mother. You educate your children, you educate a community, you talk to your friends, and you tell them a story that they can relate to, so they can learn, or you simply share it for entertainment. But I think what we hoped and set out to do was to tell a good story, but we wanted to be historically accurate. So we do want to carry on a little bit of what we didn't finish, because I think when people see this interview, hopefully we'll get some calls where some people say, you know what, I have some great stories that maybe you would like to include. We by no means think we captured everything. We captured beautiful stories, but we think there's more. So we have another grant from the Florida Humanities Council.
Wonderful. That
has provided to us some resources to do some more what we call oral history gathering. So we will be wanting to do that. So we do encourage people to call us through whatever means they can and offer us some information, and we will be
maybe an email. You can give an email now if you want to do that.
Claire, they should reach out to Claire. She's the driving force.
Claire, go ahead. What's your email?
So it's the same as my name. It's clare.m.vickery, Vickery, @att.net. Hopefully that's easy. You can also go on to the website graceartscenter.org and just follow through with the info registration page, and I'll get back to you. But we're open to hearing more stories and to recording those. We feel it's important for Miami, for culture and history of Miami.
Talk about this history. Talk about why there has been a change. What has happened? Because we've talked about this. Miami is the third largest, or was the third largest
garment manufacturing center in the United States. It was behind L.A. and New York.
What happened?
Wynwood and Hialeah. Well, the 90s came, and NAFTA came. And
talk about NAFTA a little bit and how that's really influenced the changes that have happened.
Well, we had some, we're always talking about immigration, right? So, I think so I've heard different theories about, why they passed these rules and whatnot, and to maybe keep people from Central America from coming over. So we brought the plants over there. That could be true or not. I don't know. But they created incentives to bring the manufacturing into Central and South America. And of course, that eventually led to Asia. China, Indonesia, other places. So,
China incentivized. So the difference is in some, like you hit it right on the head. There are two things that kind of happened. One, there was a drying up of the labor in the United States. There was no doubt about it. The younger generation, even then, didn't seem to want to take over the hands-on labor. They kind of saw that the writing on the wall. However, what we've seen in China said, okay, well, if that's happening there, let's incentivize our workers and our businesses, even though they didn't pay them very much. If they made $5 an hour, all of a sudden, let's say they made $10 an hour in China. They incentivized the factories to be built, the work to be done. What I find interesting is how can we learn from those lessons? And
I was going to ask you,
because I've been talking to Aaron about what can we learn in this era of a transition in federal government, leadership, and questions about how can we keep jobs and make jobs return to the United States and pay American workers what they can, a living wage. This is truly a question of the age, is what is a living wage?
And what did you both come up with when you've tossed this back and forth?
What do we come up with?
Right.
I mean, there's smarter people than us figuring these problems out. I mean, we're a service economy. I think they changed to a service economy in the United States, and I think that became the driving force. So they shipped manufacturing out, not only in the garment industry, but in all industries, many industries. And the cost to produce here is a lot. I mean, you can buy things that are produced here. They're just going to cost 5 times more, right? 10 times more, whatever they're going to cost. So, I mean, I think we had a figure where it was literally by the time they manufactured it over wherever in Central America, and they brought it back, and with everything it takes to do that, it still was half as much as it was to manufacture here. So, it just became they tried to stagger it, and you can you cut here and manufacture there and this and that, all these little things, but eventually the whole thing just moved over to another.
I think another part is the actual, going back to the title, rags. I mean, rags are obviously not what they made clothes of later, but it was these reams of cloth. America was also a cloth-bearing nation, cotton and growing things to make things from. So like Haiti also has a big role to play if eventually that can be resolved. There's just so many tragic stories coming out of South America right now. But, being able to make cloth that's then able to be sewn, this also was a disappearing industry. So I haven't given up on it, right? Yeah. And these young kids coming through MDC, they haven't given up. They're clearly interested.
Well, they haven't given up, but it's a different mindset. The tailors are going. There's fewer and fewer tailors in the United States now, and the people that are going to MDC to learn, they want to be fashion designers. There's a sense of entitlement with our country, and people want the glamour. And the glamour comes from being a fashion designer. So, and that's not to say they don't learn the skills of tailoring, but they don't necessarily go into those professions.
Well, I think Ashley and I think it was neat that through our film, she got connected to one of the professors there who hadn't known her. She's pretty well known, but I think there's some kids that are clearly there that know if they're going to make it, they're going to have to learn the hard work. So I haven't given up on the kids yet, but I know what you're saying. Like, it's very appealing to think they only want to be the fashion designer, but I think they're going to be educated by these professors and connecting them to people like Ashley. Like, this is going to, if you want it, it's for the long haul.
What I love about between the two of you, there's this healthy energy, and I love it. What was it like bringing that to the film this documentary? Did you bring that energy, like different points of view? You both have different feelings about things, about the way the documentary should unravel, how it should end. Did you find that? What was that like as a collaborative effort?
I don't think we necessarily had a different point of view. Themes developed throughout the course of making it. We followed those themes. We had a structure. That structure grew organically. Certainly, once the storytelling started to take place, and we had done the research with the archives and all these different things, it became this own organic thing, and it grew organically. And I think it was a healthy process, and I think we collaborated very nicely. I have no misgivings about it. It was wonderful, and there was an original concept and an original idea. And, that's the thing about documentaries. Documentaries are organic entities.
So we talked about this. So there's no storyboard that you start with.
No, there's not a narrative.
like a pattern maker, like we're talking about.
The great thing about a documentary is you just have to turn on the camera.
Yeah.
Right. I think a lot of when you do a narrative, and I've been involved in a couple narratives, nothing of too much consequence, but some features. And the thing about a narrative is I think a lot of work happens on the front end. You storyboard a narrative, a fictional narrative on the front end, and by the time you get to editing, you already have it storyboarded, and the editing, I think, is easier. A lot of the work is done on the front end. The thing about a documentary is I think a lot of the work is done on the back end. You have this massive amount of coverage, this massive amount of research, these photos, these interviews, and then you have to go through those and figure out what the story is.
and the voice, because I never heard your voice, either one of yours, in the whole time, in the whole process. It's not your voice, it's their voice.
Correct.
They become the main characters, which I found fascinating, because usually a documentary, there's this whole narrative, like you said, but it's their voice, and I loved that.
I think the key to a good story is, I did a project once in Los Angeles, a short film, and I got some advice from somebody who worked at Paramount. And he was telling, it was about voiceovers, and I was going to add a voiceover, and he says, well, a voiceover happens when your story's not strong enough, and you need a voiceover to fill in the gaps, right? So I think that to a large extent, a good story takes place with truthful moments, one moment at a time, and if you string enough of those truthful moments together, then you have a nice story, and the audience will lean into that. If you're coming out at the audience, they're gonna back up. But if you come in and you tell these honest moments one at a time, they'll lean into the story. And I think we were able to accomplish that.
Very authentic, very authentic.
Yeah. I also think we had a certain amount of trust of each other's capacity. We both, number one, we love this community. We love the beautiful parts of the community that are slowly either changing and in that process they're being knocked down, they're going away. We met through Purvis Young, because that was the big part of our connection, is someone who we just really admired, and we saw some of his life story not fully appreciated. And so we wanted with this, we had trust with each other's care of the store, care of people, care of the community, care of history, culture. So that is, if you come in with that kind of agreement, I think anybody can become a great filmmaker.
And you did. It was a beautiful 50 minutes.
Well, thank you. I think it was beautiful. I loved it, and I loved it. I love hearing people's stories. I love the humanity. And it's nice to give these people, or any people, when you're doing an interview, the opportunity to speak and tell their stories. That's a privilege. And because how often do you really have people that come and listen to you, and really listen to you, where you're, and I think that, like with anything, if you can listen and absorb and comprehend, that's very important to any relationship. It's important in life. And if you're trying to tell a documentary story, it's important. So, to be able to go and meet these people and give them the opportunity to tell their stories, that's a privilege. And that's a privilege that comes with making films. And, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that process. I'm grateful to Clare for bringing this project forward. It's just been a marvelous process.
A year did it take you?
No, actually. So
she was on it.
It was the financing side of it, which wasn't a true full finance, but it was a nice source of funds to start the research. We didn't land on these 11 people out of the blue. It took several months of research and
so you
grants.
Research it and the grants, and then how long to film?
Probably 2 months.
Yeah, and then the editing process.
This time last year we wrapped up the filming.
And Clare found a lot of these people, but but indirectly and directly,
I knew a lot.
I had a relationship with some of these people, so I felt
the world opens up when you're looking for things.
Yeah, that comes to you when you're open, and so there was a tremendous responsibility we had to do something good.
And you did. And
Thank
you did.
you.
And now here we are at the Miami Jewish Film Festival.
Yeah.
What is your hope for the film as we premiere tonight, world premiere, and then
Well, does anyone
virtual?
want to buy it? I mean, it's It's for sale. Let's certainly distribute it.
I mean,
The Clare Vickery.
we want to see people appreciate it, no doubt. Like if people would like to see more of this and would like to support us, because we gave a lot of our time and money of our own personal into making this project in addition to the small grant. But what I think is in this time and day and age, when you see the headlines, especially with the Middle East and even South America, I think it's a story of faith too. A lot of these people fall back on their Jewish faith, their Christian faith, and get emotional because they credit God for getting them through the worst part in their entire life, leaving everything they knew and starting with nothing. And I think when we look at what's happening in the Middle East, we really do pray and hope that something good comes out of all of this loss. I was sitting next to one of the filmmakers at the Shabbat dinner, and we were talking that there's a lot of heartfelt, prayer and desire to see, people in Gaza, people in Lebanon, people all over the Middle East that are really hurting. That they would, that the people making things difficult for the rest of the world would no longer be in place in 2025, and that good people would prevail. So we're really hoping.
And I think it's the magic of film and documentary to really tell those stories and give us again that belief, that humanity, and bringing us to being real again.
Yeah.
And so, for more information, MiamiJewishFilmFestival.org to get tickets, and it will be running through January 23rd on closing night. We will be announcing the winner at the critics jury part of this ceremony, and it has been a pleasure, and may you have good stead, good tidings, and all good things for this film and your future projects together. And it was really an amazing time to have you all with me
thanks
today.
for having us. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck tonight. Have fun. Put on your Sunday best, right?
Yes.
Or your Monday best.
I think I'm wearing this, but there you go.
That's Aaron for you. And I want to thank you for joining me. I'm Fara Sax. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Have a wonderful day.